So again, we're going to keep practicing using our preferred method. We've taken a look at how do I write an equation, and we have 4 different representations. Now we're going to go backwards. Given a graph, how would I fill all the other representations out? Okay, so instead of being given a pattern and you're writing the function, you are filling out the table, graphing it, and explaining in words what it means, we're going to go backwards. You're going to be given a graph and you're filling out all the other representations. So as always, I'm going to do example 6, and at the very same time as I'm doing 6, you are using what I'm saying to do example 7. But please make sure you also fill out everything I do in example 6. All right, so we're looking at linear patterns, then we're representing patterns in 4 forms. So this time we don't have the pattern, we have the graph, and we're going backwards. And it says, hint, start at the graph and go backwards to the pattern. Use dots. And once again, from the previous video, why are we using dots and not this line? So I will say it again. Why are we using dots and not this line? Because figures cannot have decimals. Therefore, they must be dots. So let's go ahead and identify where our dots are, since they're not giving it to us. There's a dot right here. And again, just for practice, if you're still having a hard time finding the corner, we're going to draw the boxes where this line, red line, kind of goes through. So there's a box right here, like that. Okay, so you see how it goes 1. So there's a box, 4, 5, and then 6. All right, so there's a box right here because the red line goes through here. It goes through there as well, right here. So I'm just drawing boxes where the red line is. Everywhere the red line is, I am drawing a box. So go ahead and quickly do that for your example. You do not have to do it for my example because that's just too much. But do it for your example as I do mine. So just drawing box wherever the red line or the graph is defined. All right, so I've completed my boxes. Now I'm looking for the corners so I can see my coordinates. I'm just going to quickly change my color so that you are able to see. And the corners are where the line goes through the corner. Remember, these are the corners right here, like that. Okay, where it touches the corner. And I can see it touches the corner right here. So I'm going to delete so I don't have so much going on. I'm just going to put the corner. So this is the dot. There is no corner here. There's no corner here. Here is a corner again. So this is a dot. There is, I'm just following the red line. This is not a corner. This is not a corner. That is a corner. So again, you're doing this on yours. That's not a corner, not a corner. That is a corner. That's not a corner. That's not a corner. That is a corner. That's not a corner. That's not a corner. That is a corner. And that's not a corner. So I have represented my dots. Okay, so this is my pattern. And again, the reason is that this function is discrete because we cannot have a negative. So we're going to go ahead and write that out. So the reason is this is discrete. And I'm going to give you a new word. All right, not continuous. Continuous. Okay, so let me define continuous for you, and please write it down so that you remember. Discrete means the dots. It does not join. Continuous means it's continuous. It joins. Everything kind of lines up. So this is discrete, not continuous, because, and I'm just going to use abbreviations because, again, we're math, not English, because there is no, and I'm just going to go over here, figure like 1.5, for example. See right there? There is no figure 1.5 because in real life, when you have physical things, some things you cannot have half of. Some things you can. So you kind of have to keep in mind how that works. But in terms of a figure, this is figure 1, this is figure 2, this is figure 3. So you cannot have figure 1.5 in real life. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and fill out everything. So we have kind of have part of a table. So we have the first point right here is 0, 4. So that's where I start, my initial value. And then I have 1, and this is between 6 and 8. So that's 7. Between, this is 2 and 10. 3, and it's between 12 and 14. So that's going to be 13. 19. Now there is no 19, which means I can use the calculator to find my 19, or I can figure out the pattern. But again, remember, I am going to show you how to put it in the calculator. So we're going to leave that for just a quick second and put it in the calculator. So again, previous notes, if you forgot, plus sign, table, put in the table. Again, you put it in yours, not mine, so please make sure you're using your numbers, not my numbers, and double check whatever you're typing. You put in the table, then what do? Y equals mx plus b 2 times. These are the steps, and you can notice we just keep doing the same steps over and over just so you can get that practice in. Okay, there's an error. What are the 2 things I need to replace in order for it to give me an answer? 1, I need to tell it references table, which is x1, y1, but be careful, sometimes it's 2 or sometimes it's 3, so just be careful. So where I see a y, I'm going to put a 1. Where I see an x, I'm going to put a 1. Still an error because there's a second thing I need to do, which is click ABC tilde instead of the equal sign, or you can click shift and then underneath the escape sign. All right, boom, I have an answer. Remember to check that it lines up. I don't see my points. How do I get to see my points? Good, zoom fit. Boom, there are my points, and it's gone directly over my purple points, as you can see. Perfect. All right, now I need to write the actual equation, which is replacing m with 3, because it says m is equal to 3, and b with positive 4. And once again, if this was negative, you would have put negative 4. Okay, again, red line goes right over the blue line, which goes over the purple dot. So this is perfect. I have done everything correct. This is my equation. But remember, in high school, we're no longer looking at equations. We are looking at functions. So y equals 3x plus 4 is my equation. My function, remember, the only difference really, and we'll go into more definitions later, is the y becomes h as a function of x is still the same thing, 3x plus 4. So y is h of x. All right, we are going to find what is 19. How do I do that again? I click settings, table, and I need the number 19. You can type it in, or you can press enter as many times as it takes you to get to 19. So this is going to be 61. All right, so I've got my table, I've got my function. Now I'm going to say, explain in words what's happening. Okay, so the image starts with blank in figure 0. So what does it start with at 0? At my initial point where it crosses the y-axis, remember initial start is my y-axis. Where it crosses the y-axis, that's going to start with 4. So at 0, it starts with 4. My initial is where x is equal to 0. Then it adds blank boxes to each figure. So what is the pattern that I'm doing each time? And let me go ahead and change my color real quick. How do I go from 4 to 7? I add 3. From 7 to 10, I add 3. From 10 to 13, I add 3. And remember, we're not going from 13 to 61 because remember, it has to be consecutive. So I am then adding 3 boxes. So if you look at your function, once again, I start my y-intercept with 4 and I add my slope 3. And then finally draw the figure. Okay, so we can just quickly, let's do dots so it can be quick. Figure 1 is 7, so let's do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1. That's 7 dots. And then 2 is 10, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that's 9, 10. And 3 is 13. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Boom. So just something that's just real quick. Let's practice.